So, welcome again in the Encourage to Try With Me a podcast. After so long, I think 2 years has passed ever since the last episode. Before we dive into the podcast episode, a lot has happened in terms of personal growth. So, I'm already almost 2 years in my video editing career. So, yes, I am a freelance video editor now. I've been spending all of my time and energy and focus into how I'm able to be the best video editor I can be, and at the same time, how I'm able to give value to other people. And in terms of the personal growth, so there are things that had happened where I lost friends that I thought were friends. Feelings of loneliness. The whole experience was painful, but I choose to see things from the positive perspective, which is what can I learn from this, or what is God trying to teach me in this painful lesson? It's not that I'm a masochist, it's more of how can I make the most of this situation? That's how I choose to see things, even though I'm barely functioning most of the time. But I say this because I needed the time and space and focus to help me understand what was happening at that time, because every single thing that was happening, if I'm able to go through this certain problem and try to feel okay from it, there's another problem that's going to come my way. It's like a domino effect. One painful thing happens to another, and I just don't want to go through the super personal stuff. It's just that the podcast is a place that I want to create as a safe space. I don't want it to be a place where talk from a place of pain, anger, or bitterness, because there are a lot of things that I personally have experienced where said things that I later on regret because I let my emotions get the best of me. So I don't want to happen in the podcast. That's why I needed the time and space and made sure that my decisions are from the right motives or from the right place. I want to also document this process where this is the mindset that I have and these are the learnings that I have. Currently, it's April 12th, 2025, and the last episode was, I think, November of 2023. When I look back on that version of myself, I see a different person. And in that reflection, I realized that there are a lot of things that can change in a year or 2 years. Let's get into the episode. So, in this episode, I'm going to share with you the three things that I had to unlearn that did not help me grow, and what are the lessons that I learned from it, and how I was able to change it. So, number one is the fear of making mistakes. Number two, the fear of being judged. And lastly, number three, the fear of disappointing others. There is a theme in this episode, and that is about fear. As long as I can remember, every single time that I would go out of my comfort zone, I would feel fear. For so long, I have been in a rut. And I don't know why. I don't know what to do with it. I just feel like I'm stuck. And whenever I want to do something, this is one of them. The podcast for me as an introvert is already outside of my comfort zone when I started. So as I continued on with the podcast, whatever it is that you are practicing, eventually you'll get better. It's the same with facing the fear. How I was able to unlearn the fear of making mistakes. As I sit and reflect, I think about why am I fearful of making mistake? And I realize that it feels like if I don't allow myself to make any mistakes, it feels like I'm not allowing myself to be a human being, which I am created to be. The only person who is perfect ever to walk this earth is Jesus Christ. So why am I putting that type of pressure on myself when I'm not even that? When I look back in my life, the things that I did that helped me grow was because I was a bit naive before. I didn't know a lot of things before I learned reading or listening to self-help books or podcasts. I didn't know what I was doing. All I know was that I want to grow, I want to learn. That was the only thought that I had. I didn't have fear of making a mistake. I didn't have fear of disappointing someone else. I didn't have any fears that are these three things. It's mainly about I want to grow. I want to learn. That's it. That's the simplest reason as to why I started doing it and kept doing it until I started to learn more. There's a saying where when you know a lot of things, you will realize that you don't know a lot of things. The more that I gain experience, the more that I am made aware of my thoughts, my feelings, the things that are happening around me. I started to think a lot of things where, no, if I did this, this is the outcome. This is the consequence. It's going to be a domino effect. When I was in that spot, I remembered what's the difference that I was doing when I started compared to now. And I realized that I wasn't making any mistakes anymore. I wasn't even trying to risk or putting myself out there, like in the podcast. I have this expectation in my head that if I don't do it well, then I'm not going to do it at all, which is not a helpful mindset. And that's when I realized that, oh, the reason why I was growing then was because I wasn't afraid of making mistakes. Because when I make mistakes, that's where I learn. So that is where the click came in, where this is not helping me. I need to unlearn this. I started doing things in a mindset of I don't care if I make a mistake because I don't know how to do this. So I'm going to do this and learn from it. For as long as I don't harm myself or harm other people, for as long as it's something that I want to learn, I'm going to do it, regardless if I make a mistake, because I know that I'm going to make a mistake. So that is where my head was at already in order for me to unlearn that fear. Because growth comes from a place where it's outside of your comfort zone. So the second one is the fear of being judged. So with the fear of making mistakes came with the fear of being judged. So the reason why I don't want to make a mistake is because I don't want to be judged by other people or be belittled by other people. How people perceive me is something that I cannot control. Their opinions, what they say about me, what they think about me. Would it help me grow if I care more about their thoughts than what I think about myself? Of course not. Because if you worry about what others would think about you more than how you think about yourself, especially those who just see things from the things that you choose to post, will that define who you are? Are you happy with that lifestyle or that type of thought? How I was able to unlearn it is that I went back to it's out of my control. There's nothing I can do to other people's opinions. It's their opinion. They're free to think about what they want to think about or say about what they want to say. For as long as I prioritize myself, it's not being selfish, but my question is, how are you able to help other people if you cannot even help yourself? So my main motive and intention for this podcast and motive is that I want to help give value to other people. And I wouldn't be able to give that if I continue on being worried about being judged. Because if you are putting yourself out there, if you are on social media, a lot of people will have a lot of opinions about you, even if they don't know you personally. In order for me to overcome it and unlearn things, I have to go through it. I have to face my fear. So at the end of the day, the fear of being judged just becomes irrelevant, especially when the opinions of others don't even make sense to you, then it doesn't make sense at all. In order for me to overcome and unlearn the fear of being judged, I'm doing this. I'm resuming the podcast again, even with the fear of putting myself out there. My motive, my intention, my purpose of wanting to give value is much more stronger than my fear of being judged. And lastly, number three, the fear of disappointing someone else. Someone else could mean the people you care about, the people who know you better, or the people who are complete strangers. So, from my experience, how I was able to overcome this and unlearn it is I realized that going back to number one to number three, aside from fear, I was suffering inside. That I feel that every bit of life was being taken away from me because I allow it. I was allowing the fear of making mistakes, the fear of people's judgment, the fear of disappointing people. If I continue to allow it, I'm just going to be a shell of myself, which I've experienced before. And that's the lowest of the low that I had ever experienced in my entire life. And it was scary because you really don't have any hope left when you are in that place. And I don't plan to go back there ever again for as long as it's within my control, which I did. by unlearning these fears. So, in order for me to unlearn this and overcome the fear of disappointing someone else, again, I had to accept that I am imperfect. You will disappoint people regardless of your intentions, regardless of your motives, regardless of your mission, your purpose. Their opinions are irrelevant. For as long as you're growing, for as long as you're learning, for as long as you're giving value to other people, you have to take care of yourself first before you're able to take care of other people. This last part for me is that this is where I suffered the most because I was so afraid of disappointing other people as to why I stopped taking risks. That I was no longer betting on myself to grow. Like, for example, on a day to day basis, how I am as a video editor, the client tells me an idea of what they want to happen, and the creative process is solely on me. And when I send it to them, they give feedback or they want things to be revised. In a way, there were times where I was so afraid of doing things or experimenting. That's the important word, is experimenting. I was so afraid to experiment. Not only did my love for video editing suffered, but my creativity also suffered because I wasn't experimenting. I wasn't learning anything new. I was always on the safe zone. I was not challenging myself. And this is the beauty of how I was able to, funny enough, to unlearn these things was because I applied it in my line of work, my freelancing journey. Even if I have a client that I've been working for 2 years now, there are certain things that we don't see eye to eye on, but I have to learn how to experiment, suggest certain things, because at the end of the day, what we want is the project to be a success. And even if I feel that I'm afraid, I communicate that I'm not sure if this will work, but please do let me know if this works or if that client is happy. If you're not, I'm willing to change certain things depending on what they want to see or have in their videos. Then I'd be happy to understand where they're coming from and apply that. So far, it has been working. So, in order for you to unlearn the fear of making mistakes, you make mistakes. But you make mistakes because you want to learn and you don't really know how to do it properly yet. So there is such a thing as making the same mistakes over and over. That's where you're not learning. And there is making mistakes and you're growing because you're learning from those mistakes and not repeating those mistakes intentionally. So there's a difference there. So just make sure that when you're making mistakes, it's because you don't know the right answers yet. That's why you're making a mistake and you're learning from it for as long as you're getting better. So that is how you're able to unlearn the fear of making mistakes. And the second one, in order for you to unlearn the fear of being judged, continue on betting on yourself and put yourself out there. So, just to wrap things up in this episode, in order for you to face your fears, whatever it is, for as long as, again, it does not cause any harm to you or cause any harm to someone else, you have to face your fears in order for you to overcome them. But it does have to come from you. You have to decide that you want to overcome it. It's not someone else forcing you to overcome it. It's not the people that you love, but it all has to come from you. So those are the three things that I had to unlearn in order for me to grow. Please feel free to leave any feedback that you think of this episode, and I encourage you to try to face your fears. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.